Thank you for joining us. You're listening to the St. John's Farmers Market Radio Almanac. This is a show about business and market culture in and around St. John's, Newfoundland. This program is produced and recorded at CHMR FM 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and is aired on other great stations in the province and elsewhere in the country. It can also be heard online at www.chmr.ca. I'm your host, Matthew LeDrew, owner and operator at Engine Books, the province's fastest growing independent publisher of books. Thank you for joining us for another wonderful episode of the St. John's Farmers Market Radio Almanac. We are here today with Bronwyn Bridges of Bronwyn Bridges Photography, an amazing artist who graces the St. John's Farmers Market with her presence every now and again, more often than not, selling her photography, making new connections, networking, selling products based on her photography, like these adorable puzzles and prints and all of this wonderful stuff. If you haven't heard from her about her, shame on you. But Bronwyn Bridges Photography, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, anytime. All right, I love talking to photographers. They are usually just insane people, just in my experience, just crazy. So that's always fun. Tell me about what got you started on your journey as an artist.
My favorite question people come up to me and ask is, when did you start? And the answer, quite simply, is because I got bored at the beginning of COVID and I was like, I cannot sit in this house all day. So I started adventuring with my camera, and that is exactly how I got started. I've always had a passion for taking pictures, but I've never actually made it into anything. So I've always liked taking scenic pictures. As you can tell, if you've ever seen my photos, there is a lot of sunsets in there. That is my favorite thing to do, is to go watch and take pictures of the sunset, not the sunrise. I am not an early riser, but I have always been passionate about doing that. And then at the beginning of COVID, I didn't want to sit home anymore. So I would take my camera and go off by myself, go on a little hike and take some photos, which is then when I got into my drone work as well, started taking photos with my drone, because I thought that was super cool to be able to do that and explore in a different view that I've never been able to see before over the side of ocean cliffs and everything, because I will never be insane enough to do that. So that's how I started on my landscape photography. And then I've had a few friends who have just asked me if I would take photos from there, which is how I kind of got started into portrait photography. And then that kind of took off. So now I do a little bit of both. I'm at the farmers market mostly for my landscape photos and puzzles, but typically besides that, I do photography on the side whenever I'm free.
Nice. Wow. Okay. Super fun. You say the drones help you in your photography. What if, hear me out, what if you're actually helping the drone? What if the drone is the photographer, but they don't have the physical digits to do the controls, and they've convinced you to go where they secretly wanted to go and take the pictures they wanted to take?
You know what? I believe that, because my most favorite photo that I have, and if you've been at the market, you've probably seen it, is some waves over the side of a cliff that I took during the middle of a snowy day in Pooch Cove. And I went out there and some lady was walking by me. She's like, careful you don't lose that. I'm like, oh yeah, laughing because, I'm actually petrified at the same time. And all of a sudden the drone just takes off by itself. I'm not controlling it at all. And then I realized it wasn't calibrated to the right altitude because I was off the side of a cliff. So it just kept going up and up and would not come back down. So I panic. I take a bunch of pictures while it's up there. I'm like, oh my goodness. I hit the emergency land button. It flies back into a pile of snow. I get home. I'm like so sad. I'm like, it was so pretty and I didn't get any nice pictures. And then when I pulled it off my computer, I'm like, okay, that's the best picture I've ever taken. And I'm obsessed. Yeah. So I believe that. I think the drone definitely does the job and I'm just there to help it,
That in that case, it was definitely the drone taking the picture. Like
yeah.
That's incredible. It's actually difficult to believe that you've only been doing this. I mean, the pandemic's been going on for quite some time, but only been doing it since the start. You've got a cool eye for your photography and stuff like that. You've got some really interesting shots on there.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's very, very interesting art that you've produced there. What a nice thing for that person to say. I love it when random people come up to you and are like, "Oh, be careful with that." I'm always such a butt when people do that. Like when people are like, "Oh, drive safe." I'm like, "Oh wow, thank you. I was going to drive recklessly before you
I
said that, but now you've reminded me. Don't hurt yourself. Oh darn, I was into self-harm before that, but you've changed me. Now I won't hurt
literally.
myself." Like,
Yeah, I'm like not panicking at all now. Like I was fine until you mentioned that, and now I feel like I'm just pushing buttons, and that's why it's going crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I always want to do that back. Like do like because it always sounds nice, but I'm like, it's people who just like hearing themselves talk. I
Yeah.
swear to God, I always want
Yeah.
to fire back. It was like, don't self-emulate yourself or something like that. Like, don't put yourself on fire just in case you were gonna. Like, oh, humans.
Too good.
Yeah, humans. What are you working on lately? So you've got some portrait stuff. Do you do any commission work, stuff like that? Like we've let's say author photos, things like that of that nature?
You know what I've actually been incredibly busy with lately is I've been commissioned by DoorDash to do a bunch of food photography shoots. So if you see pictures on the DoorDash app of the food, I've probably taken them.
DoorDash shoots.
I
Okay. Okay. All right.
So the food photography has been incredibly busy. I got a call, I don't know, a couple months ago. I actually did Dick's Fish and Chips food photos and had a blast. Went over to Belle Island for the day. It was wonderful, lovely people. And then when I came back, ever since then, yeah, I've gotten a lot of food photography shoots, which has been wonderful because part-time on the side, I actually work as a server downtown. So it's nice to kind of get out and meet more people in the industry. And it's dangerous though, because I've been in these places I didn't know existed. And now I'm obsessed with so many more food items than I was before I started doing this. So that's a dangerous game to play. And, you know, they're always like, do you want to try? Do you want to try?
Yeah.
I'm like, I do, but don't ask me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very funny. That's very funny. So wait, are
Yeah.
you actually taking pictures of the food when you're doing this? Because like I've heard horror stories of like, oh, that Big Mac is really like Play-Doh or sculpted or like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, they are probably sculpted. They're like high up McDonald's corporation kind of deal, which luckily I'm not dealing with that kind of thing. I'm more local business. Like I did Three Sisters the other day, little places like that, and I love it because yeah, it's all natural. They just bring the food out right as it's ready, snap a few pics for DoorDash and call it a day. It's a nice, easy way to meet some people and, like I said, try some delicious food. So yeah, I've been extremely busy with the food shoots recently because I guess everybody's joining DoorDash because of COVID, which is why that has been on wheels as opposed to the portraits. But portrait wise, I have a few weddings this summer coming up, so I'm keeping busy with those as well. Traveling for one of them, which is fun because you know to leave the island is just super exciting. So I'm
oh
looking
my
forward to that
God,
as
you get
well.
to leave the island.
I
Whoa, dude.
know.
Um, that's wonderful. Have you ever considered combining the two aspects? Okay, so you've got your landscape photography, you've got your portrait photography, and you've got your food photography you do for DoorDash. Hear me out. Hear me out. Go out to Cape Spear with an author or someone like that, someone that wants their portrait taken, the family, whatever. Order DoorDash, get them to bring it to there, and then get the person to lie down on the cliffside, put the poutine on their face, take that photo.
I think that'd be super cool. Yeah,
That
any
would be
authors
super
down for
cool.
that, give me a call.
Oh, see, you just said any authors down for weird like publicity shots. I don't think you understand how many emails you're going to get. You're like, Bronwyn, yes, please put poutine on my face.
Right. Yeah, I'm totally down for it. I think that'd be more than exciting.
That actually does sound really fun. That sounds like a very that might be the only original idea I've ever had, and I gave it away. Shocking. Always. What's next with the art stuff? I know you photographers and artists always have like a thing in the back of your head. You're like, ooh, go on. You know what I mean?
Something exciting. Well, that's a really good question. When I started this, I had, so much free time because COVID, and I'm actually doing my PhD at the same time. So I have been incredibly busy with school. So I just, have been making it work between the two right now, which I'm, a little overwhelmed, but I would choose photography over school. Don't tell anybody that. That's our secret. But
this is airing on Mon Radio, so excellent.
I'm sorry, school. I still love you, but I just enjoy the creative outlet, and I find it so stress relieving to be able to just go out and capture something that I find so beautiful. But I've been working alongside, if you've been to the market, like Matt said, I have been doing puzzles for the last year and a half. That's actually how the whole market started. So I have a man in PEI who creates the puzzles for me. So we have a little bit of a collaboration going. He does markets there and sells some canvases, and I do markets here and sell some puzzles. And so that's been super motivating to get me out to do more landscape pictures so that I can have more variety on the table. Christmas season was a bit overwhelming. We were both so much more overloaded than we anticipated, which is phenomenal. We were so happy about that. So things have been selling out super quickly. So he's working on some new images and some new puzzles to put on the table. And I've been working on trying to explore a little bit more to capture different views that maybe I haven't captured, because like I said, I'm obsessed with sunsets, but you only want to take so many sunset pictures to have on the table at a time, I feel. So I've been trying to work on that and to have a little more variety. But I also am trying to get out, use my drone more, because I don't find that I reach for it enough. It is a bit of a setup to get it out and to get it up and to bring it down and to put it away. So I feel less motivated to use that than to just pull out the camera and take a picture. So I've been working on some ideas with my drone that you'll hopefully see at the market soon.
Can you do me a favor? Like, I'm not going to pay you for, and take your drone when next time you're taking pictures of sunsets. I want you to take your drone and put it like up high, like to whatever feet it goes to, and just as the sun's setting. And I want you to time it so that you're taking the picture yourself and with the drone at the same moment, so that we can show the bloody flat earthers that it looks different.
I can do that.
Excellent.
To prove you wrong.
Of course. Okay, that is absolutely wonderful. I love talking to photographers. We work a lot with photographers doing photo books. Like we work over at Engine with Kaylee Middlecoop doing photos and Kit Sora and stuff like that. Do you ever? So, what do you see as like an end game? Do you see like do you see a show? Do you see an art book? Do you see a book of poetry with your stuff next to it, and like poetry of sunsets or something? It could be fun.
Yeah, that would be fun. That's a good question. I feel like an art book would be super cool, though. I love being able to just flip through and look at the variety of so many different images. So that would obviously be super exciting. But I never go for an end game, because I'll either be disappointed or just too overwhelmed with excitement based on the results. So we take it step by step, see where it takes me, which I'm hoping is somewhere in that vicinity, though. I'd love to be able to, also be able to showcase other people beside my work. So the idea of, like you said, like a book with my stuff attached to it would also be cool. I like to be able to collaborate with other people, get more names out there.
I'm a big fan of collabing. Yeah. It's my jam, for sure. Especially with other people that come to the farmers market, other vendors and stuff like that. Teamwork makes the teamwork kind of thing. Teamwork makes the dream work is the saying, Matthew. You're bad at this. You said you're getting your PhD. What are you getting that in?
I'm actually getting my PhD in pharmacy right now. I know. So secretly on the side, I actually run another company as I'm the president of a company called Pragmaclin Research Inc. We have designed a remote patient monitoring system for Parkinson's disease patients that's actually able to score them in real time so they can see a clinician more frequently and more accurately. Yeah.
What? That's
I know.
insanity.
I know.
What?
Nobody knows this about me.
That's insane. Okay, you have to tell me about that. I saw the down your bio on Zoom, Pragmaclin. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know what that is, and I'm not gonna ask
I
about it.
know. I'm just constantly on Zoom meetings for it, so it's just a part of my bio
Yeah,
now.
yeah. No, I like pragma. It sounds like pragmatic. So I
It
assumed it
is.
was some kind of
Yeah.
okay. Okay,
Yeah.
tell me, because this is not just about your stuff at the farmers market. This is about you, and that sounds exciting and amazing. And like, I have an artist brain, but also a science brain. Clearly, you do too. I'm not good at it, but like, I enjoy it, and I enjoy
Yeah.
learning and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Tell me everything you're legally allowed to, because oh my god, that sounds crazy.
Yeah. Legally, yeah, I can tell you a decent amount of things, but whenever I first moved here, I actually moved here to do my master's of pharmacy, and we had like a lab flood, snowmageddon, COVID. It was just an array of terrible events over the course of 9 months. So I ended up not being able to do my lab work because I was in there actually doing cell culture studies with blueberries and Parkinson's patients. And because I couldn't get into the lab to do the said research, I ended up collaborating with a Parkinson's patient named Gord, who is also an entrepreneur. And between the two of us, we came up with a remote patient monitoring system. So we worked alongside CompuSalt in Mount Pearl to design a system that is basically a computer, some special cameras, and software. When the patient opens it up, they run through the series of tests that would diagnose them with Parkinson's originally, and they'll be able to score on every single test in accurate time. And then they'll get a score at the end of the test showing how far along they are in their Parkinson's. So between 0 to 4, 4 being severe. And then the clinician is able to actually export the data and see it in real time to be able to assess their medication and see if it needs to be adjusted, if they need to come in for an appointment in person. And we're hoping that it will be able to help patients in rural areas that aren't able to travel back and forth to see a clinician, but also the fact that a lot of patients only see a clinician once a year. So hopefully this will kind of help fill the gaps in between seeing a specialist, because a lot of
Yeah.
people progress a lot faster than 1 year. So then last month, I ended up switching into a PhD instead of my master's because I was already here for 3 years anyways. And now my project is actually a clinical trial with at least 250 patients across Canada to test this software.
That's incredible.
Thank you.
That's so that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I love hearing about stuff like this. I hope it works out. That's so cool. I had no frighteningly, despite having people I love that have sadly passed with Parkinson's and stuff like that, I know frighteningly little about it. I am suddenly aware, and I never really thought about it before, that I don't know how you test for it. I think I just assume wrongly that everything in life is a blood test. That if you take my blood, you can just tell everything about me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're one blood test away from knowing everything. And funnily enough, I'm involved in a genome project now,
Oh,
where
cool.
they're taking my blood they're taking a lot of Newfoundlanders' blood.
Are you at
Not at all.
Sequence Bio?
Sorry?
Is it at Sequence Bio?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I know my friend on the project that's doing that actually. It's super,
Yeah,
super
that's
cool.
super fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like not a lot of information about the disease in general, which I think is one reason that I'm like passionate about it, but also there's so much room for interpretation, and not to downplay a clinician at all because they're fantastic and they know so much, but they're all very different. And the thing with Parkinson's is you could test blood, it's going to do literally nothing. It's more just running through a series of tests. So you really won't probably know until you've already started to develop the disease to a certain level that it's actually visible. And in which case, I mean, unless you're super on top of your health and you're like, I'm starting to notice weird things are happening, like I need to go get tested. So for example, my my coworker or my co-founder Gord, he noticed that he would run all the time. He was a runner, and he was noticing that he was slowing down when he was running, and he was off balance all the time. And he was like, whoa, I need to go and see what's on the go. And luckily he had a neurologist in his family, because the wait time to see one here was like 2 years. So he was able to fly to Montreal to be seen, and then was diagnosed there. So it's wild, because even if you had all these symptoms, you may not get seen right away. And that's so sad, especially because you develop so quickly and deteriorate so quickly, especially, not being on medication. So it makes a big difference.
That is sad, especially like you said, like, oh, as long as you're on top of your health, like, oh, I know, like, you're like, oh, as long as you notice that something's off and you go check it out. Until you said that, I was like, I'm halfway there, in that I notice when something's wrong, and then I successfully ignore it for 6 months to a
so
year.
many people.
That's normal, right? That's just as well. Yeah.
I had this conversation with somebody yesterday. I was like, when did that start? They're like, May. I'm like, May. I'm like, it's March, like last May. They're like, yeah. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's terrible. But I've always grown up in a very like preventative family. Like my mom is a nurse, and she's in the best way. Like, you are not going to the hospital for that. Like, you're fine. But also like, I would probably be a little concerned about that. Maybe monitor that. Like, and it's always been that way, which is great, because I mean, it works out good and bad at the same time.
See, like, for example, like my nan, like, lived to be 95, to be fair, but like was very much like, well, I'm not she lived in a small town. She lived on her own for like 40 years. She liked living on her own, and her biggest fear was that they were going to put her in a home and never or like a care facility, and that she wouldn't get to go back to her home, and she wouldn't get to die in her home. So she would just ignore medical problems, glaring, massive medical problems, because she was like, well, I'm not going to go in, because if I go to the hospital, they'll keep me there. I know that there's a lot wrong, and I'm 95, and I know I'm not going. And we pulled her hair, but sure enough, she was right. You know what finally got her? She had been septic for 6 days.
That's hilarious.
Like, who puts up with that for 6 days because they don't want to go to the hospital? I'm like, I'm sorry, you were pooping into your own abdomen for 6 days.
Like, there's like so many people who are so afraid of a corrupt healthcare system, and they don't believe in what the doctors say and this and that. But it's like,
oh no, she absolutely believed what the doctors said. She just knew that there was enough wrong with her that they would not let her go home. Yeah.
Right. And that's just it. I'm like, but these doctors are so knowledgeable. So then people go to see them, and they're like, oh, okay, they do know what they're talking about. And I'm not in good shape. Yeah. Brutal.
Yeah. I love the way the human brain works, where it's like, well, let's see, I've smoked for 30 years, and I went to see a doctor for the first time yesterday, and now I have cancer. Well, the new thing is the doctor, so it makes sense to say that the doctor caused the cancer.
Oh, all the time. Time.
Yeah,
it's wild.
So wonderful about the Parkinson's research. That is wonderful. That's like, everyone, oh my god, please come to Bronwyn Bridges photography. Tons of cool stuff going on. So many people have like, I wish I could be that cool. Like, people have such like multifacetedness to their stuff. And I mean, on some level, it's like, okay, I live off my art. You know what I mean? Like, my day job is my side hustle. They are one and the same. And that's super fun. Like, in some ways, this is the side hustle, in that like my thing I do for fun is the radio show, because I can do that, and that's fun, and it's not a job for me, and you know what I mean? But like, so I'm an author and a radio host, I guess, which is weird. But like, I that's a big privilege on my part, to the point where I forget that other people aren't like that. It's like, okay, she's a photographer. There you go. Oh no, she's also like crazy PhD student who's helping with Parkinsons breakthroughs and crap. I'm like, what?
Yep. Yeah, I have this some people may call it like ADHD. I don't know, but I just don't like to stop. So I am constantly finding new things. I feel like that's how photography came on, but it's been a blessing. So I'm really really happy it was one of those spur of the moments and now I'm like in love with it. But that's just kind of my life. Like I'm always working or doing I'm always doing something. My calendar is absurd. I'm like, oh, I could squeeze that in here. Yeah, maybe I could put that in here. Oh, sure, we can do that then. I'll get up early for that. No problem.
Yeah,
Like just little things. And it is a blessing and a curse all in one.
yeah, yeah. This makes complete sense to me, and I endorse it wholly. This is wonderful. Okay, perfect. Perfect, perfect. Bronwyn, if you were going to be trapped on a desert island for the rest of your life, what three books, movies, or TV seasons would you want with you? Assume you're running on the assumption that a television like or entertainment device would continue to function. Like that there's a magical element here where it's like, oh, this TV will keep functioning. Sure. You know what I mean?
Right, right. So movies, books, and TVs.
Either or one of each or whatever.
Okay. Well, I have an obsession with books. I am a slow reader, but I have this problem where I just get 3 million books and think that I can totally read them all in like a month. So I would definitely be taking some books. Currently reading Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover, loving that.
She's amazing.
Yeah. And so probably a stack of hers because I went and bought almost all of them.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. Colleen is wonderful, and I adore that she's an indie author like me, like a lot of local authors are, who kind of was like, no, if I'm popular enough, the big venues like the Chapters, the Coles, all of will have to list me, kind of thing. And it's true. Yeah, wonderful. This is a very serious question. You're a PhD student. This is very serious. I need you to get serious right now. None of your photography, artsy insanity with this one. Okay, we need to take this seriously. Your reputation is on the line here, Bronwyn Bridges Photography.
I'm nervous. Okay.
If you were a jam, what kind of jam would you be?
Definitely blueberry. Not because I really enjoy the taste the most, but because it has the most antioxidants, as I've learned from my research. So
yeah, you were saying that
we're going with blueberry jam.
Yeah,
correct?
You were saying that you were doing research with regard to blueberries, something to do with Parkinson's. Is that correct? Can you?
Yeah. We did cell culture research using blueberry samples. So use the blueberries, treat the mice and the cells with blueberries, treat them with Parkinson's induced symptoms and see if it protects the cells, which it does. So eat your blueberries.
How do these tests come about? Because sometimes it feels, and if this is how it happens, fine and dandy. But it feels like a bunch of people are in a room and they go, let's throw blueberries at it and see what that does. You know what I mean? like, oh, it turns out it worked. Yay.
I mean, good question. So my professor in school of pharmacy, Dr. John Weber, he's actually been doing research on this for like 10 years now. The next stage would be to do like a clinical trial, which is kind of how we transitioned into the monitoring system, because we're hoping to use that to monitor the patients who are having blueberries on a clinical trial. That's like down the road. I'm really hoping I won't be here that long, but I would love to see it take place. The blueberry stuff, yeah, he's been doing that for a while now. He's tested a few different fruits and things like that. I know partridge berries was one of them, and sea cucumber extract was another. All very high in antioxidant properties. But if you have wild blueberries from outside, low bush, those are the best. Highly recommend. Eat those. Protects the neurons. So there's like in simple terms, so that everybody would understand, like a protective layer around your neurons, and it disintegrates, which is why the neurons stop firing. And so in your brain, if you're eating the blueberries, it's going to help protect the layer around the neurons, which is then in turn going to help stop the degeneration from occurring.
Wow. Okay. That's unbelievably interesting. So you were saying like treating cells with blueberries. You do not mean that you like poured blueberry jam onto the cells. You mean that like the rats ingested the blueberries. It was not like, let's just pour it directly on there.
Yeah, so there was two studies, the cell culture work and the animal culture.
Mm.
And the animal one was like you take a blueberry mash it up and feed it to them. And then the cell culture, same idea. You take the blueberries, you mash it, but in like a micro dose, and you apply it on the cell culture plate and then let it grow over the course of a week or so.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on again. For all of you listening, we'll be here the same time next week to talk more about business culture in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. Be sure to drop by and visit our guests and all the other vendors at the St. John's Farmers Market this week.